All right, Greg, welcome to Living Off Rentals.
Hey Kirby, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, man. I've been super excited about doing this interview, and number one, you've got a super powerful story that I know will probably resonate with a lot of people, and it's just cool to see what you've built over the last several years. And then we were talking before this. I think we share a lot of the same affinities. I'm jealous seeing the surfboard in the background. I used to live in Hawaii where you're living. I was on Oahu, and I know you're on Maui, but every Saturday morning we'd get up and go surfing, and it was amazing. I mean, just what a great lifestyle. You really picked the right place to be. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah, it's nice to be reminded of that because after I've been here about 10 years now and I just kind of get into the daily grind, right? And like stopping to surf between, checking out going to see properties is just like part of my day.
that's
And
amazing.
yeah, I forget how lucky I am to be able to do that. So
Yeah,
good to
I
hear
was
that. Yeah.
on I was on the island for 2 years, and the same way. Like you forget that you're in the middle of paradise every day, and every day is like perfect, and you kind of take it for granted after a while. So you need those reminders from time to time.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were just showing me the goats in your backyard. You'll probably hear our chickens. The rooster crowing through the window here because we both live in a little bit of a remote area, I think, and so I think there's a lot of shared interests here, and so I want to get into your story and a little bit of your background, because I know, again, you have a really powerful story of kind of turning your life around and building something that's pretty awesome now. And I think people would love to hear how you did that. So if you could kind of take us back and share a little bit about how where you came from, your background a little bit, and then how you eventually transitioned into real estate.
Yeah. So and first off, I can be long-winded. So if you want me to kind of get to the point or expand a little more, just let me know. But yeah, so I grew up. I had like kind of picture perfect childhood, um, and until my dad passed away, which was I was 14 years old. My dad had pancreatic cancer. I didn't even know. I knew he was sick, but my parents didn't really tell me until it got really bad. My dad was a real estate developer that was kind of worked for a big corporate kind of Carnival Hotels and Casinos company. Um, and he was like played key roles in developing some pretty um, landmark properties around South Florida, which I didn't even know any of this until I found a newspaper article about him a few years ago.
Wow.
But anyway, so yeah, my dad and I were like super close. My sisters are super close to my mom. Um, Regardless of the situation, anytime a kid loses a parent, it's shattering.
Yeah.
Uh, my way of dealing with that was just rebelling, right? So it was just getting in any kind of trouble that I could. I was already like starting to get into a little bit of trouble, like while he was sick and all that, but it was really, he died when I was 14. And so that just set me off. Um, so I was doing a lot of partying, a lot of just getting in trouble and doing bad things. And along with all those things, of course, there was drinking and experimenting with drugs. And ultimately found myself, when I was in like kind of near graduating high schools, when I had my wisdom teeth pulled, for some reason they had them scheduled like two different times, a couple months apart, one side, one side, and then the other, or uppers and the lowers, whatever it was. And they had me on painkillers the whole time, which was like about a 3 month span, which I was really stoked about because I had already like been experimenting with them, and that was like my preference. I loved them. I loved the painkillers, and I think there's a little bit of a what's the word where like it's kind of symbolic, right? Like I see a lot of addicts where they have particularly painful trauma in their past,
Mhm.
and they are more drawn to painkillers. Um, so
Yeah, and that's how it
what?
starts for a lot of people too, right? The prescription painkillers, and kind of leads into other stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I had no clue how bad the stuff was. When they were just giving me Vicodin, which is like kind of the
Yeah.
weakest one there is almost, but yeah, not one of the really, really potent kind of scary ones, but that it's the same thing, right? And like I had no idea. Oh, anyways, once they cut me off, I go out and I start, finding it on my own. Things progress over time. Ultimately, I'm on get into OxyContin, and ultimately, in the end, heroin and injecting and all that. And, all the there's some things that come along with that, from being homeless and overdosing. My mom finding me. I was in my mom's house trying to detox because I desperately wanted to change my life, but it was just I just kept relapsing. So I'm trying to detox in my mom's house one time, and she just happens to walk in my room, which she knew I was not a happy person detoxing, so she normally wouldn't. She walks in and she finds me overdosed and gave me CPR and
Wow.
things like that. Just really like low bottoms.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own definition of like what bottom is and what for me, it just every time I thought I hit bottom, there was another one that was worse, right? There was a period of time where I was really considering ending my life, and I don't really like to share all of this because I had no hope at this time. When I was in jail detoxing from heroin and OxyContin, from getting from I was stealing from my job at Sports Authority because I couldn't forget about paying my rent. Like that was out of the
Yeah.
question, but I couldn't even
Yeah.
afford to, support my $50 to $100 a day habit. So I was stealing out of the cash register. I got fired from that job. And now the best job I could get before was making $8 an hour. Now I have 2 felonies for grand theft and fraud on my record. And I'm withdrawing from opiates. And I'm just like, my life is over. Like I have nothing to live for. And I share all that because I just want to give hope to, if there's anybody out there that's kind of in any kind of similar situation, regardless of what you're going through, if you're feeling like having a hard time seeing the light or seeing the other side, never ever in my wildest dreams, if you had told me at that time that I was going to be financially free, living in Maui and surfing every day and own my own home, like was just out of the question, right? And
Yeah.
driving the car of my dreams and like just things that like it never, ever, ever could have imagined. My biggest fear at that time, also like for my whole life, really, was being what I call a slave.
Mhm.
Just 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. My whole life is like I just so scared of it.
It's crazy that you were even like scared of that. You had so many other bigger things that were, challenges at that time for you to even think about like financial freedom or like escaping, the rat race. It's interesting that it was even a thought back then.
Well, I mean, and when I'm in the low of the lows, like
Hmm.
I probably wasn't really thinking about having to go, get recovered and then go work all for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's always been something that's been there,
Hmm.
from, I would say, from when I was a teenager and started working and just being at a job where I'm punching the clock and just being like, man, watching the minutes tick by and like, this sucks. And driving to
Yeah.
work, that feeling when you're driving to work
Hmm.
and you have that pit in your stomach and you're just like,
Oh yeah.
oh God, how am I going to do this again? Like 8 hours I have to be there. So yeah, I don't have to have that feeling anymore.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate you share. I know that's, like you said, it's not something you probably talk about a whole lot, and probably it's still pretty raw, I'm sure. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because I know there's people who are going through their own struggles, and maybe it's not the exact same, but there can be a pretty significant feeling of hopelessness, and so it's pretty interesting to hear where you were and now where you're heading. So I guess what was the turning point for you? I mean, how did you escape that? Because I know that that grip is pretty difficult to escape.
Yeah. Well, it was a very, very long process for me. I have friends. In fact, one of my closest friends when I was through high school and college just decided one day he was done. He started going to, 12-step programs and locked himself in his room and went through the detox and never, it's like 15 years clean now.
Wow.
For me, it was like 15 years of relapsing.
Yeah.
So when I was 22 years old, I was arrested for my first felony charge that was a possession of a controlled substance. And I got drug court. And drug court really was like kind of the eye opener for me. When they said you have to stay clean for a year and go to these meetings and stuff, I was like, oh, that's a pain in the butt, but fine, whatever. If it'll drop my charges, I'll do it. And I couldn't stay clean. And that's kind of that was the eye opener for me. So from 22 years old to about 30. Okay, so maybe I guess it was about 8 to 10 years, something like that, where I was struggling and trying to recover, but just kind of relapsing and relapsing. And I'd stay clean for 2 years. When I was 22, I was clean from when I was 22 to 24. Went back to school, started getting a decent life, and decided, well, maybe I could just have a drink on the weekends, sort of thing. So I went out and got drunk on a Tuesday night, which I guess was a sign that I was off to a bad start. And within days, I was like, why am I out here drinking? It just set me off on the. Anyways,
Yeah.
ultimately the end was really being in jail. That story I just gave about being arrested for the sport authority. And from there, my mom, I owe everything to my mom, by the way. She's like the only reason I'm alive, the only reason I have this life, without any question.
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends' parents had like given up, like they had, they're like, we're done, and my mom just never did. So she
Yeah.
fought for me till the end. And so when I was in jail, she got me into a state funded treatment center, which was like, I had been to like these really fancy ones and like, all over these treatment centers. And this time it was like, yeah, no one's paying for you to go to rehab again, buddy. Like, after this.
Yeah.
So she got me into the state funded, which ended up being the best possible thing I could have done at that time. And
this is back in Florida?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is in South Florida. And I don't really know how to explain it, what happened, or what it was, but sometimes you just suffer enough and you can't take it anymore, right? And you have the motivation. But that combined with like finally building a life for myself, I think was really what made a big difference, because now I have a life that it's like I have something to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas like before, it was like, okay, get clean, get a job at Starbucks or something, like I didn't really have much to lose. Yeah, shortly after that, that was in 2010. Shortly after is when I met my ex-girlfriend, who I'm still friends with now, and we moved out to Maui together when she got a job out here. And I think we were brought together for a reason. That's what happened. And yeah, now we're here, and now we've been able to build this life of my dreams out here.
Man, that's incredible. It's it's so ironic. I just read the book Fearless. I don't know. Have you ever read that by chance?
No, not yet.
I think you'd really like it. It's a book of Adam Brown, who's like one of the most elite Navy SEALs. That's he was part of the SEAL Team 6, which is like the top Navy SEAL team. And he was addicted to crack before he joined.
Is that the guy that did what's the other book called? SEALs, Sleeping with SEALs, or something like that?
Yeah. The author wrote another book about SEAls and about Green Berets. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Yep. So this book is specifically about Adam, who was eventually killed in action, but he was addicted to all kinds of drugs before and was arrested, has a very similar story of just, you know, the grip on, like, he went through rehab and relapsed so many times, and then he decided he's going to become a SEAL. And even after going through SEAL training, the hardest training in the world, he still relapsed after becoming a SEAL because it had such a strong grip. So, you know, I mean, I can't personally understand, but I just hearing from others, I understand that the type of pull that it's got on you once it gets a hold. So,
Yeah.
so once you got out to Maui, then it just kind of like the change of environment that made you start to focus on, okay, I'm going to start building something on my own here. I'm going to improve my life, and kind of you were able to turn your back on it, or what was the change there that started to occur?
No, and in case there's anybody that's kind of, you know, going through struggling with addiction or in recovery, whatever the case, I do want to kind of specify on that. Uh, Almost everybody was like opposed to the moving to Maui thing,
Really?
especially because I think I think I had less than a year clean at the time.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't a long time. And I have relapsed since I've been on Maui.
Hmm.
So moving to Maui was not the solution. So
Got it.
everybody that's listening is like, all right, that's it. I'm moving to
Yeah,
Maui and I'm gonna
exactly.
be done doing drugs, right? Um, yeah, no, that wasn't it. It
Too
just
bad that doesn't work like that.
yeah. Um, yeah, no, I again, I can't really explain what it was, but I think I was done. Obviously, like I said, I'd still had a couple more like small relapses, but um, it was always a progression towards getting better. Of
Hmm.
course, the relapses got worse and worse, which that was kind of the scary part. That kind of makes me think like, okay, if I ever did choose to relapse again, it might be my last one, right? Like
Yeah.
I might not have a chance to come back because every time, it got worse and worse. So, but no, I think I just, I started specifically, actually, I'd say since my last relapse, which was in 2014. So seven, about 7, 8. No, actually, it's coming up. I just did the math. It's coming up on 8 years now.
Wow.
Um, it,
Congrats, by the way.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Shortly after that was when I started kind of like building a career and like these things that like I just never was able to, for some reason, um, keep my mind focused long enough to achieve. And so I got back into real estate because I had done real estate. I was an appraiser right after graduating high school, but I lost my job when the recession hit,
Hmm.
and and then addiction kind of took over. But anyways, so I got back into jobs in real estate, just working W-2, and that kind of reignited my whole passion and interest in for the investing world. Um, Unfortunately, I had no education on real estate investing. I wish so bad that at that time I would have just Googled how to invest in real estate, how to buy a rental property, just something, because my mind was, buy a house, live in it, and wait a year or two and then sell it for $1 million more than you bought it,
Yeah.
because like my experience was doing appraisals in Miami from 2002 to 2006.
Yeah.
That's just what people did. So, yeah, I had no idea. And I tried to buy a couple properties back in this time, 2013, 14. And they would have probably made $1 million in a couple of years, but there was no principles. It would have been pure speculation. So,
Yeah.
but it worked out the way it worked out, and did a few different jobs. Like I said, the whole time during this period, I always saved and lived below my means. So
Hmm.
I think that's kind of like one of the other big factors I want to share with everyone. And by the way, just real quick, touching on the previous story, leading up to this, is that, like we mentioned, touched on a little bit, but just because my story is addiction, like there's a lot of different things that you can apply the same feelings, and everything too. So if you're dealing with a divorce or, a death, overeating, or, whatever it is like that you're dealing with. Look at the similarities, not the differences.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah. And talking about Hawaii too. I lived there from 2007 to 2009. So I've kind of had a little bit different perspective than your time there, because it was right after the crash, and it was like things just kept going lower and lower. And so I was looking for properties there at the same time that I lived there. And finally in 2009, I found a condo that I wanted to buy shortly before I left. That I got stationed in Japan after that. But I bought one, and everyone's telling me how crazy I was in 2009. They're like, you want to buy a condo right now? Like the bank, it was a foreclosure. The bank was giving it away practically for, what I offered, which was 225 for a 2-bedroom condo with an ocean view. And now I got the same situation. Like I look back, I'm like, man, why didn't I buy 10 of them?
Yeah.
But that's, I think, everyone right now after the way the real estate market's gone. So it took you a little while to get started. You started doing appraisals. And what was, I guess, when was the point that you started actually investing on your own then? How'd you take that leap?
So there was like I would say like a little bit of a turning point, right? Because I talked about how I was always interested in investing from, 18 years old when I started doing appraisals.
Mm-hmm.
I was just fascinated and drawn to and just really interested in this industry. And but I never had any sort of education on it, right? And so I would say it was around 2016, 2015, 2016, when I started. For some reason, I had the idea I think it was because I was finally starting to get a decent amount of savings, for me, which at that time was like $30,000, which was so much money to me. I mean, I never would have imagined I'd have $30,000.
Yeah.
And
It's all perspective, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's so crazy to think about it. Anyway, so I went like, oh man, I got all this money. Like, what am I going to do with it? And I thought, oh, well, maybe this is like finally my chance, And so I looked up somewhere out of the blue. I'd never heard a podcast before. I'd never even opened the podcast app. Like, I didn't even really know what a podcast was. I just heard about them all the time. It was like, figured it was people talking or something. I would listen to it. I don't know.
I was the same
so
way.
I just so I just searched. I went on the phone and pressed the little podcast button and searched for real estate investing. And there's a couple shows I started listening to. I listened to Joe Fairless for a while, like back in, when I was first starting off, and a couple other guys. And like, I just like, all of a sudden I was getting all this education and realizing the things that were possible. So that's what got me to say, okay, now it's time. Like, I got to do this. And I can actually do this, because I also didn't know what I didn't know before that. I didn't know, the barriers or not barriers to entry, right? Like, I didn't know. I think I probably thought it was harder than it really is. Not that it's easy, but
Yeah.
It's a pretty clear business if you follow.
Yeah. And I saw that you were actually just on the Joe Fairless podcast. So that's pretty awesome that his podcast kind of got you started, and it kind of came full circle. You were interviewed with your story of success. So that's cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Awesome.
Like I said, I think I listened to he's just the first one that came up, and it said best show or something like, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this, right? I had no idea what I was doing, but every time they'd talk about something, I would go and be like, okay, Google, what is hard money?
Yeah.
Or like, what is like every phrase they would say, I didn't know what it meant. So anyways, after, I would say, probably almost a year of listening to that, and then the other factor I like to talk about is my vision boards. So I'm kind of a big believer in the vision board thing. It's just, there's been so many signs that I'm like, you can't there's not really a way to make an excuse, like it's pretty
Yeah.
clear here, like there's something happening there. So at that time I made my first vision board with a rental on it. Um, and then I also, I put a picture of a house that to me represented rental or real estate investment. I also put a picture of a house that kind of represented something that, because been wanting to sort of build our own house.
Hmm.
Not site build, but we wanted to do something like a little more like, manufactured slash like, there's a lot of different kind of ways of, I don't know how to explain it, but like, they're having these bamboo houses built here on Maui now. They're sort of like manufactured housing sort of thing. But anyways, we're interested in something like that. Made a vision board. Less than a year later, we're in escrow on our property, on our vacant
Wow.
lot, and having our house built. And I owned my first rental at that time. So yeah,
Wow.
saving that, like the way I saved was really critical to my ability to do that without going out and raising, because I'm pretty risk adverse, and I like to be conservative and under leverage and all that. So I tend to just try to fund my own deals. I know I could go a lot faster and be a multi-billionaire or whatever, but like I don't really care about all that. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather just sleep well at night knowing that like I don't have, like, or the ones that I do partners, and if I'm
Hmm.
responsible for somebody's money, I know I'm not going to lose it, right?
Yeah.
Like I just don't do a lot of deals.
Speculative
I just
deals.
only do good deals. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so what year was it that you made the vision board?
That was in 2016. Also, when I
Okay.
started listening to podcasts.
Got
Um,
it. Okay. And so then you said about a year later, you had your first rental property. So how did you finally pull the trigger? Because I think a lot of people are in that position right now where they know this is what they want to do. They've started educating themselves, but it's still the difference between educating yourself and actually pulling the trigger and spending a few $100,000 feels a lot different for people. So, what was it that finally allowed you to take that step and own a rental property?
yeah, there was a lot of networking, a lot of like homework, listening to the podcast. I mean, I just stopped listening to the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And even today, like it's kind of a treat. Like if I listen to music, like Friday night on my way home, I was working on one of our flips. We're about to close on the sale. So I was like trying to, before final walkthrough, make sure everything was perfect for them. And my back's killing me, and I'm just busting my butt out there all day. So driving home from that, I'm like, I'm listening to music today. So,
You earned
anyways,
it.
just this, yeah, like listening to podcasts, educating myself, networking, doing all that, all the steps to just prepare, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going out and looking at properties, running numbers, analyzing, doing all that stuff over and over and over. And just got to the point where I knew enough to know, like, okay, this makes sense. Like, I don't see any reason that it's not going to work. Like, worst case scenario. And I'm glad I did. It worked out. It was a good deal. I said, while I say all that, also, I'm a big believer in that the purpose of the first deal is just to get you to the second deal. And even though my first deal was a home run, like, it was a really small deal, but it's 40% cash on cash return. Kind of, it was a really good deal.
Wow, that's
Um,
awesome.
and anyways, within, in the way I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm probably going to buy one, and then I'll have to save, and see how it goes. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe in a year or two, I'll buy the next one. Well,
Mm-hmm.
within like 3 months, I was in escrow on the next one, and I was like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I just went to go see it because I was curious. Now I'm like, how did I get under contract? So, and then 3 months after that one, I was under contract on the next one. And so, yeah, it blew my mind how fast it all happened. But, and I kind of believe that that's part of how this business works. Like, I see some people, I'm like, I don't understand how you even get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we own 50,000 doors. Like, what? That's so foreign to me. I own 11 doors, and my head's spinning with this stuff. It's so much. But I think what happens is, like, as you grow and you scale, and like new opportunities present themselves, and just the deals come to you more, I guess. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I've had
That's
the same experience. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for the first one too, like, because a lot of people are super reticent on the first one to pull the trigger. And the thing that I always remind people of is like, if you're looking at all the comps and you see other properties and you see what people are buying them for, and you see what they rent for and what the value is, yours, if you're buying the same thing and you're setting up the same type of property, you can expect the same results. Why would yours be so much less? Like, they're like, well, what if it just all falls apart? Why would yours fall apart if the comps are performing the same way? You can just mimic what's working in a market and pull the trigger and have success right alongside others that are doing it. I always try to remind people of that, because it is scary. It is scary to pull that trigger the first time, um, but it's been done a million times before. And so just success breeds success, but follow success. It also leaves clues. And so just do what other people are doing that's working. So what was that first deal that you did?
It was a condo.
Okay.
So and one of the things along, you asked how what got me to actually take action was, there was some guy, and I really, really, really wish I could remember who this was, but it's years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him on some podcast. I don't know if it was Joe's or like, I don't know which one it was, but I heard him and he just seemed like such an open, down to earth guy. It was from LA, I think, Southern California. And he, to me, sounded like a really big time, like had been investing for a long time, really knew his stuff. And at the end of the show, he gave his phone number and said, hey, yeah, give me a call, whatever. I was like, really? So I called the guy expecting him to be like, hang up on me or something. And I'm like, hey, here's the deal. Like, I'm considering buying these turnkey houses out in Memphis or, Midwest, kind of thing. Or the other alternative is here on Maui, where our median price, today in 2021, our median price is 1.1 million something. It's just stupid, right? How do you buy a house, even with the low interest rates? It's nuts. So I'm like, yeah, here on Maui, right? Like buying houses just out of the question. But there's this one really big complex, and there's a couple other condo complexes around the area where prices were anywhere from 100 to some of the other complexes up to like 200 to something, which was just totally drastically different than anything else on Maui. And not war zone, but like it's war zone for Maui, but on the mainland it'd be like a C- building. Anyways, I don't know, this guy just he's like, I really think you should look at your own market, and he steered me in the right direction. I'm really glad I took his advice. And now my personal advice to anybody considering that is, looking back on my own position, right, where I was torn. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I buy this turnkey house and like, let these people make the profit, right? Or do I try and create my own profit? My response, my kind of advice to that situation is, do you want a full-time job, or do you want to write a check and never do anything? Like just literally write a check, which even in that case, like, I don't know if I would recommend the turnkey thing. It just depends. Like everybody's got their own thing, right? Like there's people that turnkeys right for, there's people that like, I'm actually looking at one day another flipper here in Hawaii, right? Because I got this line of credit that's just sitting doing nothing, and he offers good return. I know him and I know his deals in this market and all that. So that's where I'm going to park some of my money right now. There's no right answer for anybody, turnkey or active or, whatever it is, syndications. It's what do you want? And I never thought about that at that time when I was trying to make a decision. I didn't think about like, okay, buying a condo here on Maui is going to be a job for me. And, sometimes it takes a couple hours a year. Other times it takes a couple hours a week, but it's a job nonetheless. And as I got more of them, it's more and more work. So I love real estate, and I wanted to replace my day job with my investing. And, I don't want to work full-time hours forever, but I'm working slowly, a little bit less and less, I'd say. But I didn't mind doing the work. So
yeah. No, I agree. I think that's great advice, because it's so personality driven. And I'm like you, I kind of am more hands-on and wanted to do it myself and maybe get a little bit bigger returns. But there's definitely a place for turnkey. If you love your job, your day job, and you just don't have the time to put into it, but you want the benefits of owning real estate, turnkey can be a great solution. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm curious. I believe you partner with Brandon Turner, right?
I
On
did.
some of his deals.
Yeah, we worked together for about a year.
Okay.
Um, and that was, whew, man, I mean, it's still crazy to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
At-
like, so for those not familiar with Brandon Turner, he's like the face of the Bigger Pockets behemoth. I don't know if you call it a podcast or movement or whatever it is, but
yeah.
he's like the guy. And so I know he lives in Maui yeah, so you guys used to partner. And I think there's a lot of people who want to partner and are curious about like setting up a partnership. So how did you guys structure that, and what was that like?
Yeah. So, which by the way, it's just when I met Brandon was at that time when I had those 3 condos
Okay.
that were worth like, I mean, they're like $100,000 condos, right? So looking back on it, I'm like, what was he thinking?
You
Like,
saw
the
potential.
guy's never done a flip. I mean, I don't think I had even done a wholesale yet at the time. I just bought these 3 condos, and I did bottom right and all that, but man, I don't know. He just saw something in me. And I met him at a meetup when he first moved to Maui, and I was very strategic about my seating at the meetup. And I kept moving around the room as like people filled in, and made sure that I was near like the open seats were like, next to me. So when Brandon got there like 10 minutes late, the only 2 open seats were next to me. And I was like, oh, hey, there just happens to be a chair right here. Um,
Nice.
and so, yeah, I was very intentional and strategic about that. So we kind of hit it off. We talked. I had heard on his show that he was interested in surfing, and now he's living on Maui. I thought, okay, I'm gonna kind of take him out and get him out surfing and help him, because I'd given lessons when I was younger, and I've just been surfing most of my life. So, um, yeah, we ended up becoming kind of buddies. And ultimately, one day he just called me up and said, "Hey, I want to go want to meet you for dinner." And meet for dinner, and he said, I miss flipping, um, and I want to get back into it, but I've got too much other stuff going on, so I want you to partner with me. I want to, we're going to work together, and you're going to go out and do the work, find the deals, blah, blah, blah. I'll fund them. You know, at that time, he actually offered me a salary or just a straight partnership. And my response was, okay, how many people are you interviewing for this? And when I asked him how many people he's interviewing, he said, nobody, it's just you. Like, if you want to do it, we'll do it. If you don't, we're just not going to do it. I was like, why? That's weird. You're like, I have no clue what I'm doing, right? Like, I'm as green as it gets here.
You're really selling yourself there. Yeah.
I mean, no, it's true. Like, I was like, what? I don't get it. And his response at that time was, paraphrasing here, something about like, I believe in getting people on the bus, right? Like, it's not about what your exact role is going to be, or what, your experience or all that. Like, if you're the right fit and you have the drive and motivation and all that, like, we're going to be rock stars. So that was kind of his response. He was like, I see your motivation, your commitment, your determination. And that was it. So we flipped together for a year. We did 3 flips in that time. And I think we averaged around 100,000 per flip profit. So we did a little under that, like 90. So we did well. It was a great way for me to like really learn flipping and get a lot of credibility. And then he had said, he was like growing his mobile home park thing, and he's got just a billion things. He's spread so thin. He was like, yeah, I can't do this. Like, I'm like, I'm giving up time with my family to go pick pick out what kind of floors we're going to do together and stuff, because my design is not my strong point. I'm always asking him for that.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he was like, yeah, I'm gonna focus. I gotta let the flipping go. It's just not,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. So, which
Got
was
it.
perfect. Yeah, because I got to learn all this and gain all this credibility and experience, um, and I have a new partner now, and it's working even better. Sorry,
That's
Brandon.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, and that's how it kind of goes. You have partnerships that you learn from, and you're always growing. And that's the cool thing about real estate is the lessons you learn never go away. It's cumulative. So, you can start now, and 5 years from now, you're gonna just keep accumulating lessons over, new things, learning new things all the time. It'll just sharpen your skills. So that's cool to hear. It's an interesting story. So you've got the 11 rental units now, and then you're also doing flips and wholesale type deals with another partner. Is that how your business is kind of structured now?
Yeah. So my partner David is owns a brokerage, and also, so when I was with David or Brandon was covering the down payment and rehab costs, but we were using hard money. So and we were paying 5% commissions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now with David, and he is funding. I mean, so far we haven't used hard money. If we have enough deals going and whatever, might need to at some point. Or private money, whatever. But so far, he just funds everything. And we can do 1 to 2 deals at a time with his funds. And I'll pitch in a little if I need to. But and he also, being the broker and having his own brokerage, means there's no selling side commissions.
Mm.
So that makes us a lot more competitive. We can offer a lot more than a lot of the other flippers that are using hard money and paying full commissions. And then yeah, it works out really great. And he's great at what he does. He's a great salesman, great realtor. And yeah, so that's kind of like my active job now is doing flips, doing wholesales, and that's creating the capital to, now basically, like I guess it's fair to say I'm financially independent, financial freedom from buying rental properties. But of course, we want that to grow. It's a modest income, like enough to pay the mortgage and live life the way I have been, but it's not really much to grow on. So and if it's okay, I'll just give numbers, because honestly, like when I listen to the podcast, I'm like, I want to know so bad what that actually especially when the guy says I own 50,000 doors. I'm like, well, how much do you make a year? Like, all right, so if your cash flow is like $50,000 a year from that, then I don't want to own $50,000.
Exactly. That's a lot of headaches. Right?
I mean, yeah, like I want to know what it translates to. So anyways, where I'm at right now is 7 with 11 doors, which 4 of those doors are one house. So there's actually eight separate properties. And total cash flows around 70,000. And after like all the maintenance, vacancies, everything like that, it's around probably, I think it's right around 59. I don't know. We got a rent increase right now, so it's probably going to be, basically net income would be around the low 60s.
Okay.
So it's like just enough, like I said, modest income. I could certainly live off of it and be fine, but yeah, certainly want to grow that. And the flips are really what generate the real capital, especially in higher price markets. I think, again, I don't know. I've only ever known doing it on Maui, but like we got a house right now that we're in escrow on. We bought for $655, and we're closing, I think, about a week from now for $950 or $945. So, and we didn't really do much rehab. About $20,000 total spent on the house. So there was a lot of challenges. I don't like to. That can be misleading, giving out those numbers, because like here, like, and yeah, we're gonna freaking knock it out of the park. I mean, it's gonna be the best deal I've ever done. But it's not like we just went and bought the house, hired a contractor, throw it on the MLS, did some negotiation. Okay, boom, we're done.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Not that simple, right? Like
Yeah.
even the easiest deals are just the reason we make a good living is because we solve really complicated problems.
Hmm.
And I just have to share this one real quick. So this guy that we bought the house from had been he was a self-admitted con man and had been doing mortgage fraud. And he's a friend of ours now. He's a super cool guy. But anyways, just gonna give a little
Good way
context.
to
We were
start the story.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And oh my god, I got to this. So the house was in his wife's name. They were not legally married. His wife died, and we go and meet with this guy, and he's like, okay, here's the story. We don't have the same last name or anything. The house is in this girl's name, but she was my wife. She passed away. Now I live here. By the way, here's my ankle bracelet. I'm a con man. And I was doing mortgage fraud and tricking people into loan fees and pretending I worked at Goldman Sachs. Whatever. He was just doing
One of
this
the big
whole
banks. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, holy cow. And we look up his name afterwards and we're like, whoa, he really did all that. Yeah, this is I don't think this one's gonna work out. We're like,
Jeez.
how could this be a scam, right? So anyways, we went through the motions. And I was kept telling him, like, no, like you can just throw it on MLS. I mean, the house is fully renovated. You don't need us for any, and he was like, nah, I already told you I would, and all this stuff. And I didn't understand it for a long time. Finally, we closed on the house. We closed July 24th. And about a month later, he told us, oh, by the way, because like I said, we became friends. We still text weekly.
Mm-hmm.
David, my partner, and the seller will have a group text going all the time. And so the seller finally told us, oh, by the way, that feds were scheduled to come seize the house on August 15th. So, now that it's sold and you guys own it, it's clear. And he got his cash. He's, I guess it worked out. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So how
Like,
did the
wow.
title company allow him to sign off when it was in a totally
Well,
different person's name?
he did probate.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it
So
did.
we were working
Okay.
with him since, let's see, it was early 21. So almost a year now. But I think the total process was probably eight months or so, 6 to 8 months of working with him towards the acquisition. And there's also like when we first went out and saw the house, I think in March, and we had a verbal agreement in March. And he's like, yeah, probate's gonna be done any day now. And then we need the sale to close like right after probate's done. And come April, May, June, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's like, hey, did probate end up
Yeah.
getting completed or what? And I just thought, okay, yeah, he was blowing smoke or whatever the deal. But I guess a lot of people don't know the timelines that these things take. So it ended up working out, and glad it did. It's a great deal and a great experience. But yeah, even the ones that seem like they're so simple, there's just a million challenges, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah. And hearing those numbers, it's so funny sitting here in Northwest Indiana. I just got a property under contract a couple hours ago for 105,000. So
Wow.
I could buy 6 of those for what you
That's a
paid.
house or
Yeah. Oh, it's
like
a
a full house?
4-bedroom, 2,200 square foot house, one and a
Fee
half
simple
bath.
or
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fee
not
simple.
leasehold? Okay.
No, we don't do leaseholds here. Yeah. That's so yeah, it's fee. I mean, and it's half rehabbed. The rehabber walked away. So if it hadn't been rehabbed, I probably could have got it for like 70. But they put in a bunch of work into it already. So the number,
Wow.
I mean, the contrast is just crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when you're flipping, especially, I noticed, you meet some of the most interesting people and have
Yeah.
a lot of interesting experiences, especially when you're buying off market deals like that. So that's cool, man. Congrats on that deal. I know we're getting coming up on time here, but the last question I had, I was curious. I heard you talk previously about having up to 60% savings rate, and that was kind of what helped you get started, which is not super common for people to save 60% of their income. So how did you do that? What was the process that you took to start saving that much?
Thanks for bringing that up. I really like to share this too, because I'm a big believer in this. Today we just spend,
Yeah.
and I'm guilty of it too now. Especially not too long ago went out and splurged on a car that was a stupid amount of money, but it's special. That was my thing with my dad. So and I'm a car guy. So, and anyways, at this time, going back to that 2014, 2000, up until I started investing, was when I was really, really frugal. I'd read some books about, this is an old book now, but Start Late, Finish Rich. I think it probably come out around the time of the recession, I'm guessing. And it just had a lot of, cut out the Starbucks coffee, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like really today, no one would buy the book, but at that time, I was just learning about finance. I was just starting to be self-supporting and fully independent, and try to plan and create a life for myself. So I put a lot of the principles into place, and a lot of the little things were like every day I brought lunch to work, like peanut butter jelly sandwiches. I mean, because I don't really need to have a big fancy lunch, right?
Yeah.
So instead of spending $12 or whatever, and having some nice sandwich made from the cafe, I would just bring a peanut butter jelly and sandwich, or I would have my NutriBullet. And so that I've been doing for about, I would say 8 years, right around that 2014 time also, where I started using NutriBullet for lunch. And I make a smoothie, and I would say probably cost me around $1.50 a day for lunch. And, it's good stuff for the most part.
Huge. Yeah. Over time, that's a huge savings.
Yeah, little things like that. When I'm in the grocery store, or any store really, I'll see something and say, oh yeah, love those, haven't had that or whatever, I want that, right? Put it in my cart, take a couple steps, say, no, I really don't need it, and I put it back. And those habits over time really, I think, were really beneficial to me and helped me to build, by doing that one day at a time. Eventually, even today, I still do these little things where sometimes you have to kind of think about okay, how much does this decision really weigh? Am I a good example is I was talking about working at the Flip on Friday, where I could have just hired a cleaner to go and prepare it for probably $300-400 and saved myself that 5 hours of work.
Mm-hmm.
I really should have done that.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes where it's being frugal is certainly not an effective,
Sure.
choice. But yeah, so little decisions like that over time, over a long period of time. And as over that period of time, I also increased my income. So in the beginning, I had made $36,000 a year, and wasn't saving 60% at that time, but I would save as much as I could. I would probably save, I would say 10% or something like that. But as my income grew, then I just stayed living off that, 35 to 45,000 a year, which I pretty much still do now, because my cash flow is more than enough for my living expenses. So that anything I made beyond that was saved or invested. When I got into making 6 figures in a job, I had a base salary, and I lived off that base salary around 50,000, and the other 50 to 70,000 that I made in commissions all went just straight into a savings account, never touched it. And once it got to be enough, I would go out and buy a rental property or, invest with it somehow. The same thing with the flips now. I live off the rental income. The flips just sit in an account, build.
Mm-hmm.
And then until either there's enough or until I find a good enough deal. Right now, finding the deals that are worth worth it to me, especially where we're at in the market. I'm being a little bit more careful. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense. Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's not the sexy advice that you typically hear. Like, you go to a real estate seminar and it's like, yeah, spend money to make money, and look at my, private jet. And, they try to make it look like you're just instantly, super rich and be able to spend a ton of money. But I think a lot of the most successful people start with that mentality of like, I'm going to work within a budget, because a personal finance budget operates the exact same way as a business budget. And if your personal finances are jacked up, it's going to be very difficult to have a business that runs on, sound financials and sound fundamentals. So I think that kind of sets you up. It was small amounts, obviously, but it sets you up for later. Now, when you're making a lot more money, you're following the same principles, and you're in a much better position for it. So I think that's really great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate, all of this. This has been super, super informative. And I think it's just down to earth advice. There's a lot of gurus out there that kind of speak from a pulpit or something, where they're kind of talking down to people. And I feel like you're just like, here's what it is. Like, this is the true life story, and this is how it goes, and this is how I did it, and here's where I came from, and here's where I'm at now. And so it's very relatable, and so many great nuggets to take away. So I really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, thank you. And same thing goes to that, is that there's not one route that's best for everybody. So for me, I wasn't really comfortable taking on a ton of other people's money, even though I could have scaled faster. And the gurus may sell a lot of that kind of stuff, and for a lot of people, that's the right way to go. But just for me, it wasn't. And everybody's got to decide what's right for them. And yeah, hopefully, obviously, like, I'm still on the new side. I'm pretty fresh to the business, and but I think it's also, you have to take into consideration that I've been doing this during one of the hottest markets that we've ever seen. So we'll see how things go when things are shift, right? Because I think we're going to see a lot of people that did really well over the last 10 years probably not do so well. And hopefully I'm not one of those people. But I try to think about that every single deal, right? It's like, okay, what is the worst case scenario? And will it put me out of business?
Smart.
And am I willing to take that loss? And I pass on so many good deals, just so many good deals. It's sometimes it gets really hard. It's like looking at Bitcoin right now. I'm like, oh my God, why did I only buy that much?
Yeah.
But I just pass. I'd rather be able to sleep well at night and know that, like, my family's not gonna be out in the streets.
Yeah.
Plan.
That's smart.
So, yeah. I like to be conservative.
Cool. Well, if somebody's listening to this and they are interested in hearing more, or want to find out more about your story, or other interviews that you've done, what's the best way to get in touch with you or find out information?
Yeah, so you can just shoot me an email. We have, I do manage the social media stuff. I really don't get on very much, but Instagram, Facebook are both at Maui Home Buyers. Or my email is pretty simple. It's Greg at MauiHomebuyers.com. And we'll have it in the show notes there too. So.
Yeah. Yep. That'll be in the show notes. So yeah, if you're interested in reaching out, you can just find his email there, and maybe he'll give you some advice that will change your life, like someone did from a podcast when he was listening to it back many years ago. So that's awesome, man. Well, thank you very much. And I want to continue to stay in touch so we can get an update on how things are going over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show. And anybody that is struggling, please don't hesitate to reach out, especially if it's with something emotional, addiction, or anything like that. Again, focus on the similarities, not the differences. And anybody that wants to invest in Maui, also feel free to hit me up. Love to hear from you.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you.